We are back, and it's really good to be back. It was a long year, and just want to thank council for enduring, but also staff, particularly our city clerk, Amanda Barnes, who did yeoman's work in a really difficult situation, and Mr. Dehaney and our staff. Made a real tough year a lot easier with the way everybody pulled together. But here we are back again, and hopefully this is just a good thing going forward. Once again, we have a missing seat. Regretfully, Jessica Abbott, had to resign to take care of some health issues, but be assured that she will be missed. And I think I can speak on behalf of council about what a great asset she has been in terms of just bringing a fresh perspective and building collaboration. And, we as a council came together through a very, very tough time. And she was a very important player. Mr. Bellucci is out ill today, and Mr. Moss will be running a little bit behind with some Boy Scout activities. So at this point, Mr. Dehaney, I think we can move forward with city manager's briefings.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first briefing will be provided by the Public Works Department. It's going to be a briefing on the Southeastern Highway Memorandum of Understanding. We've got a request from the city of Chesapeake to possibly end this agreement because we're no longer moving forward with the Southeastern Highway. So they wanted us to bring this to you all for
turn your
conversation.
microphone on.
No, you don't have to press to talk anymore.
Okay.
What?
We're back.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's mics are live now.
All right.
And what are these button things?
Sure.
Oh, we don't have to say aye. Oh, wow, that's the best part of it all.
Green means go, right?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. So we got a request from the city of Chesapeake to bring this forward to city council to end the MOU for the Southeastern Highway because the project is no longer moving forward as originally planned. So staff did some work on this, and we're presenting a presentation here to you to see if we can get your concurrence to put something on the agenda to possibly end this MOU.
Yeah, and if I can say, the mayor of Chesapeake was in touch with me, and it's, due to the fact that there are still this MOU intact, that, places some restrictions on their ability to expand. So, they requested this. But, Mr. Dehaney, thank you and the staff for working on it.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, members of City Council, City Manager Dehaney. It's great to be back. Great to see you all in person. So thank you for that opportunity to be here today. We are going to brief you on the Southeastern Parkway and Greenbelt, the MOU termination with the City of Chesapeake. Again, I'm David Jarman. I've also got other staff here supporting this. Elizabeth Chupik with the City Attorney's Office, Rick Lohman, Traffic Engineer, and Mark Shea with Planning, so we can address any questions, hopefully, if we have any at the end. We have a very brief agenda, and we'll scoot through this pretty quickly today. So our purpose, as we mentioned, is to consider terminating that MOU with Chesapeake. And kind of how this came to light, as City Manager Dehaney mentioned, Chesapeake brought this forward to us, requesting the termination. The MOU originally began back in 2001 between the two cities. It was amended in 2005. So the plan that Virginia Beach on our side we had going forward was that we would kind of work all this out in the comp plan, what to do with the Southeastern Parkway and Greenbelt. However, Chesapeake bringing this up now has kind of prompted us to have to decide if we can take action on this prior to the comp plan being finished. The other conflict was the comp plan with the COVID impacts has been delayed. Right now we're projecting, or planning is projecting that to be completed in 2023 because of the lack of input from public input so far. So they'll still need to go out and have their public meetings. So that's what's causing a lot of the delay. And so that's why this is kind of a little bit in conflict right now. We wanted to, just knowing that there were some different faces on council back the last time we talked about this in 2016, we just wanted to maybe talk about this briefly about the Southeastern Parkway so everyone kind of understood where we were and what this facility was. Originally, this was proposed as a limited or regional access limited roadway. It was shown on the master transportation plan. And again, this was back in 2016 with the latest update. However, this has been on the comp plan really since back in the early 90s. And you can see it called out. You can see it called out on this dashed green line, basically going from 264 all the way to the Chesapeake City line. The next slide is just a GIS overlay of essentially the same thing. You can see the roadway stretching from 64 over Dam Neck, Princess Anne, again back to Indian River in the city line. So a little bit of a timeline there just to help add some context to where we are today. The project started back in the mid-'80s and progressed, and you'll note there in 2001, we highlighted that in red. That was when the original MOU was signed, and in 2005, it was amended. Now, in 2008, this was when we had kind of preliminary approval from FHWA on the environmental impact statement, so everyone was pretty excited about moving forward. However, there's some changes in there, and in 2009, that concurrence was rescinded. And you can see the factors listed there. It was the viability of the project due to cost, limited traffic benefits, and the environmental impacts. So that pretty much stopped the project in its tracks right there. And at that point, the city kind of made a decision of, is there any utility we can find in phasing some of the parts of this project? And so that was when in 2013, we talked with ODU about doing some modeling work to determine the feasibility. So in 2016, that work was completed, and then we presented those results to council in October of 2016. And we'll recap some of the highlights here in just a second of that. But then in 2020, again, late last year, Chesapeake brought this request forward to terminate the existing MOU. So looking back at that, the original MOU had most provisions in there were for Chesapeake, kind of taking care of their interests. And then towards the bottom, you'll see there was a combined provision in there for both cities if there was a public-private partnership that came up. So that was really the only major provision that Virginia Beach had concern in the original MOU. In the amended version in 2005, there were a couple of items in there. Again, Chesapeake had a couple specific items for their locality. There were some fiscal considerations for tolling. We were interested in that as a funding option. And then also there was a provision in there, if the Southeastern Parkway did not go forward, what would happen with the funding? Essentially, it would just revert back to the regional MPO for reallocation. So nothing too earth-shattering there. So again, going back to the 2016 briefing, there were some important points that came out of that are kind of relevant for today, primarily the first one here. And that question was, is the Southeastern Parkway still a viable and permittable regional limited access roadway? The answer was no. That was what was presented in the briefing. That's still true today. And that's an important point given our consideration today about whether we move forward with the MOU or not, or we terminate that. Other questions that were answered were, are there segments of the Southeastern Parkway that have independent utility? The answer is yes. Are there other uses that we could explore for the right-of-way? And the answer is yes to that as well. So again, as we looked at that, in working with ODU in the modeling effort, we looked at 5 different logical sections to break that right-of-way down into, and you can see those listed there. They're color-coded to correspond. With that effort, when we went back and looked at that, we said there really were a couple of sections that provided transportation benefit based on the modeling and kind of all the new road configurations rolled up in there. And it really was the final sections from the city line back to Holland Road. And again, that was from a traffic standpoint. So if we look at that and we step back and say, what about the overall corridor? This is where the possibilities kind of open up and get a little bit broader about what could be done. And again, we're not answering this question today, but it is something that council and the citizens will need to be thinking about moving forward, is what could we do with the Southeastern Parkway right-of-way? Certainly transportation is in there. We mentioned that. We have a couple projects with the Greenbelt Phase 1 and 2 that we already have on our requested but not funded list. There would be considerations perhaps for active transportation, for bike and trail facilities. Utility corridor might be explored, certainly with the offshore wind. That might be something that would fall in that category. There also could be some considerations for selling property or even considering other economic development with that property. There could be things that we haven't even thought about that would come out of the comp plan. And then finally, it could be a combination of all the above. So those are things that may be coming down the road. And again, we feel like a lot of that would get flushed out with the comp plan review. So the briefing today really is short and sweet here, and really the idea, the principal recommendation is we want to recommend to terminate that MOU with Chesapeake. Again, there's no 4-lane parkway section that's going to come out of this, so there's no need for that agreement to remain in place. There's no fiscal or contractual commitments for Virginia Beach, so there's nothing we need to worry about there. And then going forward, we would just want to continue to explore options for the use of the right-of-way, solicit the public input with the comp plan update, and then hold the formal decisions when the new comp plan is approved. That would be approved by council. So, and with that, I answer any questions.
Ms. Wilson?
Thank you for this report, and it's definitely, thank you, Chesapeake, to go ahead and put this to bed and move forward. It'd be interesting to see the parcels that we've actually purchased for this. I know we didn't purchase the whole roadway
Correct.
pieces. So we could get an idea which parcels there are and get a better idea of what we can do with those. And they'll be very, much more valuable now than when we bought them 20 years ago.
Yes, ma'am. And we can provide that. That was actually the October 2016 briefing had those details in there. It was a much more detailed briefing on the right-of-way. So we can provide that to council members
Thank
again
you.
for reference. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Henley?
Just as a follow-up on that, of course, when we essentially bought parcels when it appeared that they were going to develop, and we bought the parcels to retain the right-of-way. And so often we bought more property than we would have needed
Correct.
just for the roadway. So following up on, what actually do we have out there, I think it's probably gotten substantial. But I think we always anticipated that, well, when the road was built, we would be reimbursed in some fashion for the money we were spending. Do we have this, is this a CIP project so that we know how much money we have put in this to this point? Or
When-
how is that handled?
When the update was done, when we did the briefing in 2016, the number that was listed in there was about $44 million that had been spent on acquisition.
A lot.
And it was in various funding sources. Some of it was from BRAC, some of it was in other places that all kind of contributed to the right-of-way for the Southeastern Parkway. So it's not necessarily one pot of money that we can say, there's the number. It's kind of spread out in some different places for different initiatives that impact that.
It's kind of interesting. I was redoing some filing and going back to the time in the 1980s when Bob Jones came up with this brilliant idea. And it kind of came and went and came and went. It's got quite a long history, but
It does.
I think what we've ended up now is probably with a lot of property that's going to be very good for us to have, give us a lot of options that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to do if they had allowed to develop. So we've got some opportunities, and we want to make sure we utilize them to the fullest, but
Yes, ma'am.
looking to see just what we do have and so forth, I think is important so that we keep that. And now, for example, the wind energy transmission line, looking to perhaps use part of it is just the beginning, I think, of what we're going to have as opportunities.
Correct.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Hey, David. Dave.
Dave, I'm sorry. I just had one question. Given the, all the publicity we've had about the Dominion project, offshore wind project, somebody in the city must be taking a look at Greenbelt for that. I mean, I'm sure Dominion's taking a look at it. So are we actively talking to Dominion about that? Is that, how
We
close
are.
are we?
We are. We've had several coordination meetings with them. They're looking at that and have asked, what would be the potential to use that right-of-way? And we said there is potential there, and so they're looking at that as some of their routings with their permitting options. It hasn't been finalized yet, and I think the plan for Dominion would be for them to come forward, I think, in kind of like a spread type setting and figure out if they, specific parcels that they may be interested in, to bring that forward so that there could be some consideration, formal consideration, because obviously at staff level, we don't really have the ability to say, it's okay for you to use this. We don't want that. It really needs to be at council level, so we would bring that forward for consideration.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious as to what kind of schedule we're on for that, because looking at these parcels and what other uses could get critical sooner rather than later.
It could be. We have been in coordination. I don't have the exact dates. They still have to go through the permitting process, but we can certainly get the information that we have, the current information we have for you.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Henley?
I do along that same line, and since most of this transition line, all the possibilities are in the Princess Anne district, I guess I'm the one who's hearing from people. But I know they've got, 6 possible avenues to use for their transmission line. are we tracking the comments that they're getting from the public? Because I know, I'm hearing from some of the neighborhoods, and, I'm just telling them at this point, they need to be making their comments to Dominion.
Right.
But then will we come up with a city position?
Theoretically, we will. We haven't heard or seen the comments back from them. I think they may still be processing some of those because they had a pretty extended comment period. So I think they're going through the process of consolidating those. So once those are done, certainly we would want to talk to them and see what feedback they received, and then kind of.
So that we'll have an opportunity to see what folks said to them, and then we can determine what our proposed or preferred right-of-way would be.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
then it's all up to the State Corporation Commission?
I think so at that point with their permitting effort, yes.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks a bunch, appreciate it. Okay, and now is City Council discussion initiatives on the Flood Protection Program bond referendum. Okay, Mr. Dehaney, is there any update on,
Mr. Mayor, this came at the request of council. Basically, what we want to do here is that we've passed out a copy of the resolution for the bond referendum with the proposed question. And before it's presented to council for council to vote, we wanted to see if council had any additional comments or questions or feedback or input on that question. Ron, you want to run them through it real quick?
hey, Ron, how you doing?
Great, Mayor. The past 2 Fridays, and at your place, you had a copy of basically responding to the last direction we had. The option A was basically, here's the question, with the list of projects embedded in the question. And just to make sure we were covering all bases, we gave you a second option just for
Right.
one more consideration, which is basically just asking the question about the amount, but then there's direction in the resolution to the manager about accountability, so to speak, about what should be done, and then with the resolution could have the list of projects. So we know the preferred recommendation going forward at the last workshop was embed the projects in the question. We fine-tuned them. I believe there's 21 projects that basically are described in that question, in that paragraph that you see there at your place.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Tower, then Mr. Wood.
Ron, I like the language on the insert, the yellow highlighted language.
And we could certainly add that to, if you wanted to.
I mean,
other
can that,
as well.
that
Yes,
could
sir.
go into the first resolution as well as the second?
Yes.
Right, okay, just want to make sure.
Is that it, Guy?
I'm done, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wood.
So I'm just trying to figure out, looking at this, these 2 questions, and I did, so the first alternative lists all the projects.
In the question. yes,
Right.
sir.
The second alternative, tell me how people know what the projects are then?
There'll be an
It's an,
exhibit A.
and it's an attachment to the resolution.
But will that be on the ballot?
No, sir.
So people won't have that attachment?
It wouldn't be in the question on the ballot, no, sir.
Okay.
In that option.
All right.
Anybody else? Ms. Henley?
Well, I just feel that we're at a spot that is going to be a one-shot deal for us. If we don't get this referendum passed, then what are we going to do? I think this is a critical thing for us to get. But knowing that we're also, and not just us, but government in general is also at this place with the public, that there's a lack of trust. And if we're going to get this referendum approved, and if we don't get it approved, then I don't know where we are. We're really up the creek. But if we, in order to get an affirmative vote in November, we have really got to do this right. And I'm not sure I'm where I'm comfortable with what we're going to be taking out to the public. And I know I have said several times over the past few weeks, I think when we go to the public, we've got to be talking to them and answering their questions, not only about the projects that are in this referendum, but our entire stormwater project, because what they're going to be wanting to know is if their flooding that they're having now is going to be fixed. And a lot of that goes to the maintenance situation, not the CIP. And so I think we've got to be in a position to address the whole aspect of flooding. And as I said, I see it ranges in a lot of areas. And, you know, I'm thinking of groups that I'm going to be trying to answer questions from, and I know a lot of it is going to be dealing with the maintenance question. Well, we just passed a budget that increased another whole team of, what do you call them, of people for doing pipe cleaning, and another whole group to put in another whole system for canal improvement. And we've got to be prepared to answer questions about what's in our maintenance schedule over the next 2 or 3 years. And then we're going to have to be able, and I've mentioned the roads, because Dave Jarman's done a good job of keeping me up to speed on these road projects that we're going to be beginning in the Princess Anne district later this year, and I sure am counting on this being right. We're going to begin construction by December of this year on Nemo Parkway, in Sandbridge Nemo 7A, which is big. I mean, that's going to be a major project as far as flooding, which the people in Sandbridge are going to be concerned about. But that project is already funded, and it's in our CIP. But we've got to be able to tell them about that, even though they're not seeing it in the bond referendum, that we're going to be doing that, because that's built to accommodate 3-foot sea level rise. And then West Neck Road is going to get started this year, and then the first of next year we're going to get Elbow Road going, and look at what that's going to do. Because all of these major road projects have the drainage as a component of it. And I think that the people are going, but what we're going to be able to say is, by having this bond referendum, we're also going to be able to do this, this, and this. But even though your project, your immediate area is not there, is somewhere else, but they're all linked together. And I think we really have to be able to show people how we're dealing with it as a totality. And now we can even get down to, and if you want to, in your yard, have a driveway that is pervious, you can get a grant through the VCAP system that we just funded with our, with the Soil and Water Conservation District. So it goes all the way from our bond referendum projects, our regular CIP projects, our maintenance, and individuals, that we have got now an opportunity to deal with all of these aspects of it. And I just think we have got to know, I mean, people are going to want to know, how is the drainage in my neighborhood going to be taken care of? And if they see the whole picture and see that this is all a part of a big plan, and we're not just talking about doing these projects, but if we have this in our plan with the bond referendum, and we get that money, then we can do these other things. And I think if I heard right, that we're going to be using some of this the other ARP money that's going to be able to do this, plug it in, this maintenance component. I think that's the plan, but you're not going to have that ready for us until August. So I'm not sure we're all on track to know the totality at this point, which I feel like I've got to have if I'm going to talk to the people. But I think when we go out, we've got to be able to answer all the questions. And I hope we're not segmenting this whole thing and thinking we're only going to be looking at the bond referendum and these issues. I think it's got to be the total.
The education and platform, Ms. Henley, is looking at a comprehensive flood protection program. And starting with your operations maintenance, recurrent flooding, all the way to the sea level rise, future projects. But certainly tactically, the questions on the ballot that, we have to also articulate the importance of them. So that's what's contemplated. We've had some very robust discussions even over the past week about how we'll have platform partners that can also bring in the other information about what this means and the greater sense about economic impact, about environmental impact, and so on and so forth. So all the comprehensive stuff that you typically would look for, that's what's in part of the template for the education platform. Our critical path right now is that your last voting meeting in July, is where we need affirmative resolution in order for to meet the timing for us to go petition the circuit court to put it on the ballot.
Well, when does early voting start? In September. Are we going to be ready? Because we can't have those people who vote in September vote no just because they're scared of all this money and we haven't given them the message yet. I'm not sure we're ramped up enough to get the word out in time.
Okay, Mr. Wood?
And see, I agree with a lot of what Ms. Henley's saying. I mean, we're asking people to authorize $500 million, and if we don't have this very clearly stated on the question, I think people, their natural inclination is going to be to vote no. The whole, I mean, I understand it makes it easier and more pleasing to the eye to have an attachment, but if this attachment isn't at the ballot, people aren't going to, they're not going to have any idea. They're just going to see the city wants to take $500 million in tax money and spend it on something. And I think you're right when you talk about trust in government, that sort of thing. But, and then we also have the issue of how far can we go with respect to education versus advocacy. And that's, so I think we've got a lot of issues, but I think that, at the risk of making the question burdensome, I mean, if we don't have things identifying specific projects in the question, I think it's doomed to failure.
Yeah, Ms. Wilson?
I agree with everything that's been said here. I think Mr. Tower's suggestion about the webpage should be added. And Barbara's totally right that, is there some way we can put in the question that this is part of a comprehensive plan to address not only flooding but sea level rise, and so that looks that we're looking at the whole package?
Flood protection program, that's the phrase that's embedded in there right now, certainly. I mean, any amendment you want to have, I'm sure. Dana's here, I think. It's a matter of wordsmithing, but
it's,
yeah.
We have what we speak, and then the folks, citizens have people speak, and some of these terms, we probably need to know what is going to ring something in their ear.
And some of that is on our early polling that we looked at with the surveys. We've been calling it a stormwater bond referendum prior to, 30 days ago or so. And so that's why we crafted it so that it's understood it's a comprehensive program.
And
Yeah.
maybe to make it simple, you want to try to keep it as simple as you can, is to put as part of a comprehensive plan to include the sea level rise and flood protection, and to let people know that it's all encompassing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Tower?
Well, I think I know where Ms. Wilson's going with it, but the problems that sea level rise cause is flooding. So really, we got two different flooding issues. One's a stormwater issue, one's a sea level rise issue. So the question is, how do you, I mean, in a way, but the other problem I would have about the sea level rise is we're not doing, I mean, this may have some positive sea level rise aspects to it, but it's not part of the sea level rise program as much as it is stormwater.
A couple of them are
Some
early
of them,
stages of
right.
that. Yes, sir.
So I don't want people, I don't want people saying you're trying to put one over on us, talking about raising money for sea level rise when the great bulk of it is for stormwater. That's my only concern about
Okay.
your
Except it's part of
comments.
a comprehensive plan, part of a comprehensive plan.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And this also builds the capacity for us, should a future council determine it's the priority of theirs to work on sea level rise, so the capacity will be there for us to expand out on address sea level rise programs. And to Ms. Henley's point, we truly understand the need to have a comprehensive dialogue as it relates to the whole flood protection program, not just the projects, but also the ongoing maintenance, the canal and the dredging work. And that is part of what we're working as part of the communication plan that we hope to present to council before we start to get in front of the community and start to detail to them the comprehensive nature of the projects and the maintenance and things like that that has been already funded and also what will be funded in the bond referendum.
Well, let's see, we're going to have a chance with Elsa this week, and we're in that season, depends on how many storms we get. And if we get one of those really heavy ones that floods everybody and makes everybody mad along about October, we're in trouble.
I was thinking maybe if we had that, it would get everybody to the polls to vote for the referendum.
I don't know, but they might, I don't know, we've really got to be able to show them our plan, and in such a fashion that they've got some confidence that they're going to get relief.
We agree.
Anybody else?
We don't want a Sandy, though.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Ron, I think the emphasis could also be on, in terms of the education, not on the ballot, the consequences if we don't do it.
Yes, sir.
I think that's something that we could really, as far as the comprehensive, this is like a Fram oil commercial, pay me now or pay me a lot more later. And, the tangible benefit of what we're trying to do. I mean, this is about, in discussions with the Navy, about making sure people can get to base. And the other thing is too, Ms. Henley, that it's not only the individual neighborhoods that people live in, but you're gonna be traveling all over the city, going to Norfolk and everything else. So, even though your neighborhood may not be, fortunately, I live in a neighborhood that's not really affected by this. But when I go to other neighborhoods, that's the other thing. So even though it's not in their immediate thing, there is a tangible benefit.
There's a ripple effect.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
there's a definite ripple effect. And this is, a lot of things for economic development and everything. This, there's a lot of tangible benefits to this. Okay? Okay, Ron, thank you very much.
So what are we doing? Do
So
we
option
vote
A
next
with
Okay.
adding the specificity about the tactical items in the resolution
I would say-
that we should do
Is that
for
okay?
accountability and
Say that again.
public. So there was that highlighted paragraph in option 2 there
Right.
at the end of the resolution, which
Right.
had some specificity for direction to the city manager for transparency and accountability, as I'll couch it. That was a recommendation that Dana Harmeyer had thrown in there for us based on some of the discussions.
Yeah, I thought that was creative and should be comforting to
Yeah, I think
anybody
so,
that
too.
reads it.
Does anybody object to
I
that?
do.
You do?
I do. I think the projects need to be specified.
What, sir?
we are.
So no, we're
Oh, yeah.
saying,
That's the
take
idea.
the option B paragraph and add it to
Add
the
it to
option A resolution,
This is
but
in
still
there.
have the question
Okay,
with
yeah,
the
that's
project.
Okay. Yes, Ms.
So
Henley.
are we voting on what the question is going to be next week, or are we just voting to have a referendum
You're voting on the question.
on the question?
Yes,
Because that has to be specified to the court, correct?
That's right.
Right, and so that is, okay, the shall, the city, those are the questions in the two resolutions, that part. We've got the long one and we got the short one.
So you're going to do the long one, but we're going to pull that paragraph from the other one.
The highlighted paragraph on the right page. Yeah, sure.
Who's going to be in charge of the public relations program?
We actually have a team that's been working since, well, starting in April, that's been working with, under Jacobs Engineering. We have a contracted team that's working with our communications team that's also started to build what I'm calling platform partners as well. So we'll start to see some early pieces of what the team has developed. They've been working at, as you suggested, at your retreat. You asked us to work it as if it, like a campaign, and so that's the type of team that we have working on this right now. That's part of the surveying that has been underway, but we've also had scientific polling that's been going on, and some of that information we'll share with you at your meeting next week prior to your vote.
I'm
Ms.
just
Sally.
thinking of the bond referendums that we lost. And we cannot just put the question out there and a few pamphlets and assume it's going to pass. We have got to all be out there working. I mean, working to explain things to the public. I don't mean working to try to get it passed, but as I said, to answer all the questions that people have got about their stormwater. And it's going to fall to us an awful lot to be able to answer questions for people. We just cannot sit back and say, well, we've got this information out there and it's going to do the job or not, because if it's or not,
It's a
We can't take-
multi-medium platform we're developing for you, and so for you as advocates for the referendum, along with partners that would be advocating for it, we're developing a toolkit. And so it'll include multimedia and other means that can be distributed in person and then electronically as well.
Yep, Ms. Wilson.
So have we reached out to some of the other organizations around the city, for their support in this?
We're going to have a Train the Trainer session later in the summer for some of those type of partners with this toolkit that we have that will be giving them to help them carry the message. Yes, ma'am.
Ron, is there any plan to have a really high-class video that really
That's part
kind
of the
of?
toolkit, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes. And we're also looking at, obviously, there'll be a significant number of other meetings, but like we've done with other high-profile, large topics, a series of citizen information meetings that we can have throughout the city, that there will be a schedule for as well, that would start exactly with that type of intro, Mayor. Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor and members of council, we do plan to brief council on this next week on the communication plan to kind of get your feedback and input before we start that process towards, in August.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Ron. And thank you, Mr. Dehaney. Okay, any liaison reports? Ms. Henley?
Somebody else have something to talk? The Green Ribbon Committee is a real neat committee, especially when we're talking about stormwater. Of course, they're looking at from the water quality aspect of things more than others, but it's certainly a timely committee now. And we had a very good briefing at the last Green Ribbon Committee on the Marsh Terrace design project that is underway. And I just want to make sure all of you are aware of it. I know this is on a link that can be sent to all of you, but this, of course, will be able to be used not only in Back Bay, but in other watersheds as well, if we find that this is something that works. But this is a pilot project that we've gotten funding from a federal grant to do the design work this year, and that's underway now, and it's tremendous. And we hope to have the design complete by this time next year, and then be able to use a component of the bond referendum money on the green infrastructure, if we're not able to find other grants, to do this pilot project, which would build 200 acres of marsh terraces in Back Bay along Long Island. And of course, the idea is that rebuilding the marshes will help slow down that water so it doesn't barrel up from the Albemarle Sound quite as rapidly as it does now and flood everything. But you need to know that this is being done. It's really a very intense, very scientific based. It's very impressive, and I hope you all will see this presentation. If you want to go online, or maybe we can have a briefing to the council at some point soon, because I think you'll be very impressed at what our folks are doing, and it's very forward thinking, and to be able to think that we might be leading the way in a project like this is pretty astounding.
Okay, any other council comments?
Liaison, Mr. Mayor, in your package, you will have seen or will see a ordinance to amend City Code Section 2.6 and a resolution to approve amendments to the bylaws. These were worked on by a committee of RAC for quite a while, had some timeouts during COVID, but I think they're ready for prime time, and I hope they'll be approved. If I realize they are only coming out now, and I have no objection to deferring them if you want longer to look at them, but that was one mission I got from the last meeting of RAC, to please take this to you. RAC has been active in, they had a presentation from the folks at Venture on the Atlantic Park development that I thought went very well, with a number of questions asked to Mike Culpepper and other reps of Venture who were there about that project. And we got a good presentation about the program, the proposed program to have parking donation meters with new language. Some of you may recall the parking meters that we used to have where there was a language saying, put some money here, rather than giving it to someone who was panhandling, to use a phrase that apparently is no longer politically correct, but I haven't found anything to quite replace it yet. But in dealing with the homeless, we got I thought, a very robust presentation too about a Get-Give program that would I'll bring. I assume we'll have a presentation before council at some point, but I think it's innovative and an attempt to deal with our homeless situation that is sometimes particularly acute in the resort area, where there's a lot of interplay with tourists who are trying to use our great resort retailers and others, restaurants and hotels, and come into contact with each other. It's just a real issue that we continue to struggle with.
Okay, anybody else? If I could just say, I would encourage anybody that hasn't gone down to the new Woodstock Park on Providence Road. You know, this is one of Jessica's project that she helped shepherd, and it's amazing. You know, I've done a number of ribbon cuttings in my time already, but this was a wow factor. When you think about a joint venture with HRSD building a 5.2 million gallon retention tank and putting a 32,000 square foot world-class skateboard venue on it, it's remarkable. So if you ever do get a chance, go down and check it out. Okay?
Bob,
Yes.
you and I had another opportunity. Well, everybody had the opportunity, but you and I took it last week when we had toured the new Princess Anne Middle School. And that's another wow factor project. And what our school board is doing, I know, is costly in building these schools that are green and so forth, but every inch of that school is a part of the teaching tool. I mean, they're for a purpose. And if you have the opportunity, maybe they will repeat it and allow more tours to really see the depth of the design and what the design is for and the opportunities. And when I think the two of my grandchildren are going to be there in September and have the opportunity to be there at that school, I'm really, as a grandparent, very excited. And but that school is fantastic.
Well stated.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Ms.
I
Wood.
have a question and a comment, and it's related to I-3 on this agenda. Is this a typo? This says there's a resolution to extend the deadline for the recommendations of the Citizens Review Panel Task Force. Last I checked, I was the author and am the author of this resolution. I did not ask for this to be here, so how did it get on the agenda?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
So, Ms. Wooten, I can tell you that I'm supporting the task force. I'm at the meetings with them. Deputy City Attorney Rod Ingram's there as well, and this is a request from the task force.
So do you think I should have received that request or known about it, or?
There is no council liaison, so this is how it was asked to be put on the agenda, and
Who made that request?
the task force actually requested it.
Okay, well, I'd like to request that it not be on the agenda, that it be postponed until the task force gives a report as to what they've been working on. And then I think it's appropriate to do an extension at that time. But right now, I don't know, and council doesn't know what they've been working on. We've had no report. And so I'd like to know what they've been working on before I agree to extend anything. I mean, I think that would be the natural order of things. And to me, it doesn't make sense to postpone something that I don't even know, and council is not aware of what the work has done, what the workload or what the work is that they've done. So I think it's premature.
Ms. Wooten, if we could talk about that during agenda review.
We can, but I just wanted to make sure this is on record. I didn't ask for this, and I don't know where it came from, and it was never communicated to me that this was going to be an item that we were going to be reviewing. I had no knowledge of it, and I would have preferred that someone reach out to me and provided that knowledge as a courtesy.
Okay. Anybody else at this point? Okay, agenda review.
Okay, so under ordinances and resolutions, items 5A and B have speakers. I take it, Ms. Wooten, you want to hear item 3 then as well?
Do
The
I
one you
want
just
to hear
talked
it?
about? Yeah.
Do I want to hear? No, I want it to be deferred. I don't want to hear it.
Okay. Does the rest of council want to have a consent for deferral?
Usually, I thought it was, you ask the council person, and then, you know, once if the council person is asking you to defer something because it's premature, and I just stated that, and I just stated why, I think it's very premature.
Well, if I can ask, so, Madam Clerk, you staff it, and Mr. Ingram, you staff it. Was there a vote?
Yes,
Did they have a
there
vote?
was.
Was it
It
unanimous?
was unanimous.
So every single member of the commission?
There were, I think there was one member not
Ian?
present at the meeting when it was voted on, yes.
And there is not a council liaison. No.
So it doesn't sound like anybody wants to, we can just hear it, okay? And then you can make your motion to defer or whatever.
We have speakers?
No, but it doesn't sound like there's consent to defer it, is what I'm saying.
I didn't hear that.
I'll defer.
Okay.
All right, so
That's not what I
who
heard.
wants to defer it?
So I believe the chair will be here to speak now. He just asked me if he needed to be here, and I said I would let him know. So I'm assuming he needs to be here to
All right,
speak
so
now.
we'll hear it.
So he's here to speak?
He will be here tonight.
Okay,
Okay, that's news to me as well.
all right.
I just found
I'd
out.
like to hear what he has to say.
Okay, so items 3, 5A, and B. Is there anybody have issues with any of the other items on ordinance or resolution? Ms. Henley?
I do. Item 10, and I sent an email to Mr. Tower and to the mayor. I am absolutely all in favor of $400,000 to get people back to work. But I am really troubled by having $150,000 of it spent on administration and marketing. There's got to be a better way. That's almost half of it going to, not to the people. It seems to me that we should have in place from what we did with our small business grants, the capability of giving grants to restaurants and hotels and so forth that need to be able to provide incentives to get hiring people. They need that right now in this summer. They don't need to wait for some public what was it called? Public outreach and marketing and so forth. $150,000 is an awful lot to be spent not on actually getting people back to work. It bothers me. Did anybody else have that impression?
Any other comments, Mr. Tower?
I think I sent everybody Mike Woodhead's memo. I'm sure somebody will be here tonight to speak about that, so I don't have any problem taking it all, not doing it on consent if we want to vote. But I'd like to have, I think the issue is that unfortunately, unlike businesses, we don't have a mailing list that we can know who there's not a list like there is with businesses, which are much easier to identify, to get information about this in the hands. It takes a broad and deep kind of outreach to reach individual people who may or may not be. I share Ms. Henley's concern that it's a lot of the money, and I think it could be reduced. I don't have any doubt that you could do it for less. This is the request, and we can certainly ask the spokesperson for the group to give us more detail about that. I think that some of this been done. I'm not sure, Mr. City Manager, you in communication, anybody in your shop in communication on this project may have that kind of information too.
Councilmember Tower, I know Deputy City Manager Adams have been having conversation with the group.
Okay.
Yeah, we had something from the city economic development about, it would be $250,000 for back-to-work cash incentives, $100,000 for a marketing campaign, including creative, media, community relations, and public relations, and $50,000 in general administrative expenses. So that's almost half of it for getting it. I mean, I think more than $250,000 ought to be in the cash incentives for back to work.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Councilman Henley. Thank you for the question. Councilmember Tower was exactly right when mentioning that a big challenge to distributing these funds are identifying potential laborers in the community that could potentially apply for these jobs. And so it's important to note also there's a thought that there would be that part of this is also research conducted by, I believe he's an associate professor at Virginia Tech, that would also be looking specifically into sources of labor to whom we could market. And if that's not in the request, to the council member's point, there'll be someone here this evening who can speak to that specifically. But yes, ma'am, the big challenge here and the reason for the marketing piece of this is not knowing where these potential pockets of labor are that we can go find. And so you're seeing, and I think Councilmember Towers absolutely right when he said that there could be some conversation about an amended sum or sliding the scale, but what you have here is the request as he received it and as we received it.
Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Mayor, could I ask Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Taylor, is it not true that one of the problems that we have is that, and this goes to Ms. Henley's point, in order, the industry very much wants to spend this money now.
Yes,
because now is when they need it. But they have no way to start spending it until there is a campaign, and a campaign that's mounted for quick, broad coverage, get the right number of people, is expensive. It's much more expensive than doing a campaign to the business community, for example, where there are ready outlets to do that. Point. So I think they agree with you entirely that the money needs to get into these people's hands now. They don't want to have this money available in the fall when they think the balance may come into balance. Right now is when the revenue is there to be had if only people could stay open full bore or get their rooms cleaned and not have to cut out all their midweek opportunities because they can't find anybody to clean the rooms except during the week to get ready for a weekend of people. It's a conundrum, but I do think we're all on the same page in that the industry and we all agree this is money we want to spend ASAP.
Councilmember, that's accurate. And just to add on to that, what we are consistently hearing from our stakeholders is they are not seeing applications for the vacancies that they have. And so they are working through all of the traditional traditional avenues for finding employment or for finding employees, and they are just not getting the response that they to their solicitations. So the request for the marketing really is going to what Councilmember Tower just said. There is a sincere concern to get this money out the door quickly because employees are needed now. I think that part and an ongoing hope of the marketing is that as we find new potential employee sources, that some of that basically there would be some ongoing benefit there. Yes, and this is where but I hear your concern. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I mean, if it's a matter of paying cash, hiring bonuses and that kind of thing, I think, but, I guess the marketing companies will be able to hire some people to do this work, so people will still be getting hired. But $150,000 out of $400,000 is too much for administration
And
marketing, too much.
so I've been in communication with some of the stakeholders today, just preparing for questions. I'm happy to continue that conversation between now and the formal session, and maybe there could be.
Please do.
So do you want to hear that, Ms. Henley?
Yes.
Okay,
And I know it's going to be a long meeting, I'm sorry.
okay.
We got Domino's coming at 10 o'clock.
Okay, under planning, DHW Joint Venture LLC for street closure for a 15-foot street dedication adjacent to 50-foot Norfolk Southern right-of-way and 20-foot private road northeast of Tolliver Road. It doesn't have a district on it, but I believe that's Bayside.
I'm sorry, I lost focus here. Where are we?
Item J1, which I believe is
Plan,
Bayside.
first planning item.
It's this agenda, it's just, it takes a set a record here, but I can't find things.
It's a
I'm
Bible
sorry.
this week.
Okay.
All right. here
So
we
it's
are.
not printed on here, but it's Bayside District,
Yeah,
Mr. Jones.
I don't have it.
All right. All right, Ocean Rental Properties LLC, now known as ORP Ventures LLC, for a street closure of 1,151 square feet, unimproved portion of 10th Street, adjacent to Norfolk Avenue Beach District. Mr. Tower.
No problem with that.
Item 3, Southland Haven LLC for modification of conditions. Ray, allow the vacation of easements to construct office at 877 Southland Haven Road, District 3, Rose Hall. Mr. Berlucci's not here, and I'm abstaining on this item.
Is Mr. Berlucci going to be here for the meeting? Do
Maybe.
we know?
And maybe not. Say we defer it.
Defer it? Is that, okay. Defer to next week,
Sure.
so that would be 7/13, so,
If Mr. Berlucci attends,
We'll keep it.
do you want to keep it on or keep it for a
if he
deferral?
shows up, then we can ask him.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Just wanted to
Right.
clarify.
Okay, good point.
Number
Thank you.
4, Pembroke Square Associates LLC, conditional change of zoning from B3 Central Business District to conditional CBC Central Business Core, rate construction of housing for seniors, 4554 Virginia Beach Boulevard, Bayside.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, same thing, Pembroke Square Associates LLC, Ray Housing for Seniors, southwest corner of Genie Street and Constitution Drive, District 4, Bayside.
Yeah, they're connected. I'm
Right.
fine with that.
Number 6, Commonwealth Auto Group, Inc. and WWMD Properties LP for conditional use permit Ray Motor Vehicle Sales and Rentals at 4873 Haygood Road in the Bayside District.
Yeah, this will be an improvement over what's already there. It's been
Okay.
there.
It's all about Bayside here, Mr. Jones.
All right, items 7 and 8 have speakers, so we'll hear those. Item 9, Krista L. Woodlock for conditional use Ray short-term rental at 3709 Rockbridge Road, Bayside District. Number 9, Mr. Jones.
Rockbridge Road. Okay. Yeah, it backs up to some that we've already granted, so I think it'd be okay with
So consent, okay.
No.
Okay. Number 10, Standard Community LLC, conditional use permit Ray short-term rental at 427 Paragon Street,
it. We're gonna
Bayside.
have to hear it, because I'm not in favor of it.
Okay, we'll hear that one. Item 11, William Giorgio, STR at 3608 East Stratford Road, Bayside District.
Hopefully, this is the last of this group of these that's gonna happen, but It's, we just approved one
Okay.
just behind it, so it's kind
right.
of hard to say no.
Ms. Henley, you're no on this one?
No.
Okay. All right, number 12, Andrew Broyles, conditional use permit, short-term rental at 3604 East Stratford Road.
Same situation.
Okay. Same, okay. All right, number 13, Kim Davenport, conditional use permit, rate short-term rental, 8809 Atlantic Avenue in the Glen Haven District. If you'll recall, this is one that, that I asked them to defer to work on the parking, and they've redone the parking so they don't take out the trees. So I'm okay with it, if anybody wants.
No.
Okay. All right, number 14, Dan and Sarah Bailey, conditional use permit for a short-term rental, 103 57th Street, Glen Haven. I'm okay with it.
No.
Ms. Henley, are you a nay vote for that?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Number 15, Todd E. Swigert for conditional use permit, rate short-term rental at 507 19th Street, Beach District.
Can I ask Mr. Tahan a question? Bobby, is this, the map clearly shows that it's in the OR district, that your narrative, which you usually say that whether it is or not, doesn't indicate that. Indicates, in fact, it's in the Old Beach overlay. And I'm a little confused about.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tower.
Talking J15 here.
Yes, sir. Now that is in the OR district.
Okay, all right. I'm okay with it.
So consent. Number 16, did you,
Well, is there some method to the madness that we had these before we decided whether this was going to be an overlay district or not?
Barnes can address that, I think.
Just to be consistent, I'll vote no.
Okay. All right, number 16, Spivak Family Trust, short-term rental, 229 16th Street, Beach District.
I'm okay with that.
No.
Number 17, Heather Shemp, conditional use permit, rate short-term rental, 304 28th Street, Unit 307.
I'm okay with that.
No.
Number 18, we're going to hear their speakers. Number 19, Catherine Patterson Denton and the Pink Cabana LLC, conditional use permit, rate short-term rental at 1316 Cypress Avenue, Beach District.
I'm abstaining on that one.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to put it on consent or hear it or what have you?
Anybody object?
What are we on, 18?
18?
19.
19.
Does anybody not want to have it on consent? All right, no consent.
No.
That'd be a no from Ms. Henley.
It's on consent with
Yes,
a
sir.
no from Ms.
Number 20, we're
And
going
an
to,
abstention from me, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Number 20, we're going to hear.
Number 20 requests withdrawal.
I know, but we've got two speakers that are opposed to it, apparently.
I would not be opposed to withdrawal.
We have, the note I have, correct me if I'm wrong, there's one that says opposed, only wants to speak if not on consent, but then there's another that's just out opposed, correct?
And then Ms. Messner just signed up too.
Okay, but so do we know if these other two folks would be okay if, have you talked to the second one on the list?
I didn't take
The WebEx one?
I can try to.
We'll get in
reach them.
touch with them.
Okay,
and see if-
so is everybody okay to consent for withdrawal if?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do consent for withdrawal. And then if we hear otherwise, we'll pull it. All right, short-term rentals, we've got speakers on that. Yeah. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
That's it? All righty. Okay, moving forward. And we'll do the call for a special session.
Closed session.
Oh, closed session. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from the open meetings allowed by Section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purposes or the disposition of publicly held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A3, Beach District, and Lynn Haven District. Building security matters, discussion or reports or plans related to the security of a government facility, building, or structure, or safety of persons using such facility, buildings, or structure pursuant to Section 2.23711A19, and that would be police security brief, Ray Council Chambers. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by the city members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefings in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiation or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A7, and that is Boust et al. Versus City of Virginia Beach and Holloway et al. Versus City of Virginia Beach. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to Section 2.23711A8, and that's the 8th Street easement issue. And personnel matters, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body pursuant to Section 2.237A1, and that would be council appointments, council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agency, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, we can do them.
Yeah, we can.
We can do the vote?
Oh, yes.
Yep,
Motion and second.
we have a motion and a second,
Wow.
and I see the lights.
I'll go back and
That
see.
cuts down.
Mr.
the
Rouse,
length
can
of
you
our meetings.
vote?
The trouble is the board's broken now. Okay, I'm over.
No, it's not. Go ahead and close it.
There we go.
8-0.
Wow.
Yay.
Okay, we're going to recess into executive.